All right, my name is Jillian Salas. I'm a current graduate student at Cal State Long Beach studying sport management, and I'm here with Michael Bodmer. This is the Sports Career Readiness Interview Project. And Michael, if you can just introduce yourself and where I know your show just got canceled, but I guess what that
Um,
role was.
yeah, my name is Michael Bodmer. I am an associate producer on ESPN's The Jump. We got word that we were being canceled October 18th, or we will be on the air until October 18th. So technically, I'm still with The Jump. When The Jump finally concludes in October, I will be an associate producer on the new NBA show that they're launching, which can't give a lot of details about that, but it'll be NBA basketball on ESPN in some capacity.
Okay, interesting. So I actually have a background in journalism as well. So I'm very curious to see how was the working for a sports network? And did you already always knew you wanted to be in sports journalism?
Yes. Well, when I was very little, I wanted to play in the NBA. But then I grew up and realized that wasn't going to happen as an 8-year-old because I was pretty short. So I was like, what's the next best thing? And I thought that would be sports broadcasting and just covering the NBA. So honestly, it's something I've wanted to do since I was probably like 10, 12 years old. And it's been everything that I hoped it would be. It's a lot of hard work, but I love it. I love what I do.
So I kind of want to backtrack. How was your college experience? Well, obviously, I'm assuming you earned a degree in broadcast journalism, correct? And then what
Yes.
kind of just led you up until after college, and what was your first job after college like?
My first job after college was the production assistant program at ESPN. So it's basically like a glorified intern. I lived in Oregon at the time, and I knew a girl who was interning at ESPN, and she had got my resume into the right hands. And I kind of applied for about 6 months until I finally got noticed. I was just very, very persistent and annoying. And they finally interviewed me, and I moved out to Bristol. And that was my first job. And I've bounced around within the company for the last 10 years or so.
So how was it like moving, I guess, across the country into, the East Coast and leaving your family and, just for
Uh,
a job?
yeah, in hindsight, it was pretty scary, but at the time I was pretty naive and I was like, oh man, this will be easy. But it was tough because I didn't know anybody like east of Utah pretty much. But it's a very tight knit community out in Bristol amongst my department because it's a lot of just recent college grads. So you make friends pretty quickly. I was only in Bristol for a year before I got transferred out to Los Angeles and worked out of that studio. So it wasn't too bad.
Okay. Did you ever want to be in front of the camera at all?
I did. In college, I did. But then when I graduated, I was getting some job offers in really, really tiny markets, like covering like rodeos for about 20,000 a year. And that's where a lot of people get their start and they make it. I didn't love the process of being in front of the camera enough to do that. So I wanted to be behind.
Right. I think that's kind of some things that a lot of my classmates and I talk about is that entry level position after school. And it seems like you were able to find a way around that. I mean, maybe is that correct?
Yeah, I kind of. Yeah.
Yes, I think a lot of us are, kind of hesitant to make that push to
Yeah.
go into maybe a smaller market if a lot of us are from, SoCal. Is there
Yeah.
anything that like you can talk about in that aspect?
Just like how to get around it.
Yeah, or maybe moving to Bristol, like if it's worth, moving out of where you're from.
It's definitely worth it. I mean, you just have to decide how much you love it and how much you want it. Like, I knew that there's not a lot of things I'm good at other than talking about sports and producing sports content. And so for me, I was like, if I don't make it here, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not someone who can power through a 40-hour week of something they don't enjoy doing.
Mhm.
Um, like, I'm not tough like that. So if you're passionate about being in front of camera, if you work hard, people will always find you. If you work hard and you're nice to deal with, that's half the battle. So yeah, if you love it, then I would encourage anybody to go to Billings, Montana, or North Dakota and cover wrestling or rodeos or do whatever you have to do to climb the ladder.
Right, super interesting. So, how being a sports fan, I guess like some things that they say to us in interviews, like we don't want to know that you're a sports fan right away. So, how are you able to when you had that interview, how were you able to translate it and yet not, I guess, overexpose that I want to work in sports so bad?
Like you mean in the interview process?
Yeah, I guess in the interview process and in general, because I've heard stories or I've had other people tell me, hiring managers say, like, we don't want to know that you're a sports fan. Like, how are you going to make our business better,
Yeah.
in that aspect?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really stupid thing to say. Like, it's so competitive in our industry that you need to think, how am I going to set myself apart? So I get messages on LinkedIn all the time from like, hey man, like, how'd you get your job? I love sports. I would love to cover. It's like, of course you love sports. Every single person in the world loves sports. So just find your niche. Be like, I've always been a passionate fan, and just knowing the ability that I have an interesting perspective on how to create sports content and how to convey storylines and topics to fans. I feel like I can give people a broader perspective and open their eyes in a way that's not covered in any other network. Like ESPN has 8 channels and is on for 24 hours a day. So how can you present a story differently than the 10 shows before that have been airing on the network?
Right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you had like a unique pitch that you say about yourself when, you were going through the interview process.
I just say I make my money being creative. That's what I tell people. I think I just have the ability to know what people like, and like I expose myself to so much media and pop culture and sports that I just feel like I have a grasp on what people want to see.
That's really interesting. So working, I guess, on your day-to-day job as an associate producer, what are kind of some of like the details that you have to go through, maybe like building a rundown or graphics, or what's the total aspect of that?
So my job, I kind of do whatever they tell me, but the niche that I've carved out for myself, which is going to change now that Rachel Nichols is not hosting. But what I did is I would do all the kind of like the fun video. I would do monologues, like Rachel would write a 5-minute monologue off the top, and I would organize it with over the shoulder graphics and photoshops and video. So the harder news stuff, like right, are you a big NBA fan?
I'm up to date with the events.
What's going on in Philly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Ben Simmons wants out of Philadelphia. The Philadelphia brass, they can't decide how they're going to get him out of town because they want a really nice package in return. So I wouldn't necessarily cover the ins and outs and like the salaries of that. I would think of ways like I would create like a Photoshop of like Ben going to these different teams and like which team fits him the most. I would get kind of in depth rather than like the surface storylines. I'm not a very news.
Right, that totally makes sense. So being in, working for the show that caters to the NBA, how was it like in your organization once, I guess, the day that Kobe passed, you had to create a whole new show from scratch, and how was that process like that day?
Well, Kobe passed on a Sunday, so we weren't on the air until Monday. We have our shows Monday to Friday. But I mean, him passing, that took over every piece of content for the next 5 days. So we did have plans, but fortunately, I don't want to say fortunately, but fortunately he didn't pass away like 10 minutes before a show was going to air. So we all came into the office about 3 hours after he passed on a Sunday and just kind of brainstormed like, hey, how can we delicately and present this in a way that nobody is going to.
Right. I because my own experience in a newsroom, it's crazy, and you never kind of predict these things. So
right.
I was just wondering how it was like in yours, just out of curiosity. But yeah, felt everywhere, not just in news, but sports, entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm moving on.
No, you're good. You want me to talk about it?
I'm sorry?
Did you want me to talk more about it? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. To me, whatever your personal experience was, it was just for my own curiosity.
Okay. Yeah.
So you had also mentioned earlier that you had, when you got your, I guess the program at ESPN was through a friend. Your other positions throughout the company, has it been through someone you also know, or a relationship you built within ESPN?
No. So when you get to ESPN, you're a production assistant, and that just means your foot is in the door, and it's kind of your job then to figure out where you fit. And like, so some people will go produce live events. Some people will produce sports center. Some people will get into HR. I got into highlights, cutting highlights. And then I worked for Sports Nation, and then I worked for NBA Countdown, and then I worked for The Jump. So I made it pretty apparent from the start that I was a big fan of the NBA. And so I didn't have connects prior to, but I made connects as best as I could of people who could help me get on the NBA programming, because it's what I'm most comfortable discussing and it's what I'm most comfortable producing.
Right. Excuse me. Can you actually elaborate on that with the connections that you made with leading into your role within, the NBA shows? What was that process like?
You just kind of ask around, like you make friends when you first get to ESPN, like you all work in a giant newsroom, like where everybody's cutting highlights and pieces of video. So you get to know people, and then you just say like, hey, who produces this NBA show? Like who works on that show? You get their emails, you reach out like, hey, I'm really interested in working in the NBA. Could we sit down and like just pick your brain? And the worst thing you can do is say like, hey, how can I get a job doing this? Say things like, what can set me apart? What would make me an attractive candidate when there's an opening? Like, what do you look for in a producer? And they'll tell you, and you just stay in touch.
I think for some of us, we're kind of afraid to, approach people. And with your experience, it seems like that it worked for you. Can you also elaborate on that a little bit? Or is it just, a matter of, hey, how's it going? My name's Michael. Do you have 5 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, be very formal in the beginning and just be very respectful of their time. And I mean, I feel like sports broadcasting and the industry, when you're trying to get your foot in the door, and if you're serious about it, at least at ESPN, people are so accommodating and kind, and they just want to help. Mm-hmm. So if you're serious and they can tell, and you're like, you present yourself in a good manner, they'll carve out time for you. Like me and you right now, like I just want to help you succeed. So like I just want to help people get their foot in the door.
Yeah, of course. And have you ever had like a mentee or mentor at all?
I don't think I really ever had a mentor or why did I say it like you said it? Like a mentor?
Well, there's someone who like guides you, or you're helping guide anyone.
I never had like a guide or like a mentor, but I just had very tight connections and people who were very nice to me.
So how do you, I guess, would keep in contact with someone that you're trying to develop a relationship with?
I mean, beyond just like, so I have like a lot of college kids who reach out to me, and say like, hey, how do you get a job at ESPN? How do you do this? How do you do that? And so often I get people who I'll say like, hey, go to espncareers.com, check the openings. If you see something you like, send me the link and send me your resume. But the minute that you ask someone to do work, you don't hear from them again. It's crazy. Like people just want to be handed jobs. And I've heard that from so many decision makers and producers at ESPN, like just show that you're about it. Like if we meet one time, follow up with me in a month and say like, if you know I'm a Portland Trailblazer fan, say like, hey, I saw Dame drop 50 last night, but he's pissed off in Portland. Like, how do you see it ending? And we can talk about it and then gradually get into, I worked on this. Can you give me some feedback? I worked on that. How do you think I could have improved this? So don't, it's not always best to touch base for the sake of touching base, but have a purpose, like ask for some feedback, advice.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So with the show, with all like the drama that had in like the past month and during the Olympics, was it kind of a very tense situation during that couple weeks? And, how was it like, just coming to work every day, like you don't know what's going to happen next? Was it kind of that like that, or how did it feel?
It was extremely tense. It was very difficult. I can talk to you off interview time about like kind of opinions and stuff. But it was really, really hard on all of us. It was during the NBA finals and the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals. So we had a lot of plans and those kind of fell by the wayside. And within 2 months, we didn't have a show. So it was it's still very an open wound.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And how long has the show been or I guess how long has it been broadcasting?
5.5 years. We just had our big 5-year anniversary show back in February, and we're like, got a lot more in store for you. And nope.
Well, in October, we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, I was just kind of, I think sometimes, did you ever have to take like a mental break at all because of what was going on in your work life?
I would still love to take a mental break. We were on vacation last week, and we were finally getting a week where shows weren't on air. And basically, we all told each other, turn your phones off, turn your email off, just focus on you. And then Tuesday, we find out our show is getting canceled, and then we have a million meetings the rest of the week. So I would love to take a mental break, and I hope I get to.
Right. I hope you get to take one too.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of want to talk about working in sports, and obviously you work Monday through Friday with the new show. How do you like balance your off time? Like what do you, I guess, do for fun, or how do you do the work-life balance, in all aspects?
I mean, a lot of my work-life balance is basketball. Like, I love it so much. Like, a lot of people will work in an industry about something they used to be passionate about, and they might lose some of their passion or like desire for it, but I still love the NBA. I'm a huge sports fan. I watch everything. I love the outdoors, because I'm sitting down all day long. My wife and I, we go on a lot of hikes, we go camping. So, yeah, just find what you love to do. This job doesn't take over anybody's life. It's not, you don't have to take your work home with you.
Okay, that's nice to hear. So like pre-pandemic, were you traveling with the show, or if you guys did do that?
Yeah, pre-pandemic, I was traveling a lot, and I was traveling this year for the NBA Finals and the NBA Draft.
Okay, and then you don't have to ask me this, but like, did it take ever a toll on like a relationship? Because I think some of us grad students are kind of figuring out like, what if we do work for the NBA? There's games like every other day practically. How do you do that, like personally?
I mean, you just make sure that the person you're with understands what you're about. Yeah, you just got to make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into, and eventually, I mean, you'll make sacrifices. And like, do I need to watch this Sacramento Kings versus Dallas Mavericks game in mid-November? Probably not.
So how is it like during the holidays? Like, you watching basketball on Christmas, or?
My wife and I are a lot of games, and she goes to bed early, so I'll watch a lot of games like the next morning or when she goes to bed.
Okay, that's funny. I like to hear that though, because some of us like to, watch sports at 10 a.m. or 4 in the morning when soccer's playing in Europe or something like that.
Yeah, but nobody gets into sports production because they like think it would be maybe a nice fit. You get into it because you love it. And so whoever you're with or whoever you're friends with, they're going to understand that about you by being around you.
Yeah. Can you also talk about like the other roles that are available that's not just like a reporter role or a producer role within like a network, but what are the other positions that someone might enter after graduating college or eventually down the line?
I mean, you could do coordinating production, you could do on-site production, you could get into HR, you could get into social media, you could get into graphics, like graphics production. I don't know, like there's just so many. You could get into stats, you could get into research. There's so many things you can do once you get in here.
Right. So more about, I guess, people who are on the production side. I don't know if you're fully aware of like what those roles entail, but maybe someone who wants to do like live events and what kind of production that looks like, from small details, like maybe the tasks that they might do, large to small. Are you familiar, and can you talk about that at all?
Like in event production?
Yeah, like say, when you guys like a stage manager or something like that, what would those roles look like?
So I know a lot of people who've gone down that avenue, and I don't know the ins and outs of their days. I'm happy to put you in contact with a couple of people I know who started at ESPN with me and who are on the event production side now. I couldn't give you a good answer.
No worries. I was just wondering. So it's almost been 30 minutes now. Do you want to add anything else that maybe I might have missed, or some advice or some lasting knowledge that you can drop on us at all?
I would say when you're first getting your foot in the door, say yes to everything. Like, the more marketable and the more skills you have. So if somebody like calls in sick for graphics production one day. Don't volunteer yet because you don't know what you're doing, but like get acquainted with it. If like stay late to learn how to write correct copy. Always seek feedback. So if there's somebody who can do graphics, if there's someone who can direct, if there's someone who can segment write or cut video, if you can do all four of those things and you can put all four of those things on a resume and you're learning and honing that now, you're going to be so much more marketable. So when someone's looking and trying to make a hire, they're going to see, wow, this person can do so many things that this person can't do. I'm going to hire this person. Okay. So just get acquainted with everything that you can.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And is there a best way to follow up with you, or just what's the best contact, your email or LinkedIn?
Yeah, just the email that you have for me. You reach out to me anytime you want. If you want to follow up, I can drop you my phone number just so you can stay in touch if you'd like.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So I don't have anything else for you. I hope you have a nice rest of your day.
You too. Thanks a lot, Jillian. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.